There are declarations and victories. Charlie Woods achieved more than simply a triumph at the AJA TaylorMade It's an invitation. He took center stage and ensured that the golf community could no longer ignore him. He carved up the pitch with confidence that seemed more mature than adolescent, closing the tournament far below par. The plot changed from conjecture to certainty in a single weekend. The murmurs become roars when a Woods triumphs. It was more than simply the scorecard's number that made this unique. It has to do with his playing authority. Charlie seemed at ease competing round after round, with a fluid swing, sharp strokes, and unwavering poise. Instead, a contestant who belonged was seen by spectators who were anticipating the anxieties of youth. This has nothing to do with Tiger's shadow. Charlie had to take a stand on his own. He is a contender in his own right, not merely Tiger's kid. With each putt that fell, he erased uncertainty as birdie after birdie piled onto his card. The last round served as a showcase. What would have been a grueling round was transformed into a winning lap by 8 birdies. Fans were left counting, strokes below par after they previously muttered about pressure. Doubts were heaped higher than birdies. And this is the reality. Genetics is not the only factor that contributes to this kind of performance. The last name does important. However, this kind of supremacy requires a lot of perseverance, hunger, and hard work. Charlie deserved every hit. Dominance must be earned. It cannot be inherited. Not merely a well-known last name on a tee sheet was visible to those observing. From the ropes, they were seeing a rival ascend. The rumors of legacy or nepotism subsided as Charlie made a statement out of every fairway. More than just a surname was visible to the gallery. Even detractors who were ready to compare Tiger had to hold back. There was no shadow play in this victory. Charlie was imposing the discussion on himself. A victory that stops comparisons. For a little while, the sport hinted at the potential for another Woods era, not as a clone, but as a continuation with its own flair and personality. Greatness was seen, not taken. Every brilliant moment in golf serves as a reminder to players of how fleeting success can be. At the U.S. Junior Amateur, Charlie Woods brutally learnt that fact as the excitement around his historic victory gave way to the pain of missing the cut. Instead of confirming momentum, a tournament revealed growth's instability. The scorecard wasn't the only thing that revealed the truth when the cut went further than anticipated. It was the discrepancy between what was expected and what was done. The threshold was abruptly raised, and every bogey seemed exaggerated after winning one tournament. Charlie showed promise in the second round with a better score of 74, but it was unable to undo the damage. Potential is not given away in golf. Real life clashes with talent. The number itself wasn't the most painful thing. It was the quiet that followed. These days, headlines focused on teenagers still looking for consistency rather than birdies. The lack of advancement became more noticeable. Than any celebration, a misstep that shouts louder than quiet for someone with a last name that expects perfection. However, behind the disappointment is a lesson that cannot be purchased or passed down. It's not the end if you miss the cut. It's the beginning of understanding what distinguishes sustained excellence from bursts of genius. Failure presented as a basis. The public too often evaluates young athletes based on podiums and awards, failing to see that development is erratic rather than smooth. This wasn't the whole book to Charlie. It was only one chapter. Furthermore, a loss is just as important in this tale as a win. Every chapter isn't a medal. More than any other sport, golf instills humility. The game changes, corrects, and humbles you just when you think you have the answer. Charlie became one of several athletes who were taught the lesson early on. Golf is more modest than it is laudatory. However, a lost chance is not the same as a missed cut. Where skill alone is insufficient, resilience is carved out by each setback, sharpening the sword. Missed opportunities, not missed cuts, because Charlie's score isn't what will ultimately define him. It's his capacity to rise repeatedly in front of an audience. Only resilience is a significant score. As things were starting to pick up steam, golf served as a stark reminder of how cruel it can be. Junior amateur Charlie Woods encountered a harsh reality check at the U.S. that no last name can shield you from. The cut escaped him. He was the face of promise for a week. The following moment, he discovered a harsh reality of the game while standing outside the ropes. It's one thing to feel pressure when the incision goes deeper than anticipated, but it's quite another to collapse behind it. Charlie put up a strong fight to bounce back from a rough first round, even managing to put together a better 74. However, survival in golf does not automatically equate to progress. His ascent failed, and the harm was done too soon. Although promises might get praise, they don't change a scorecard statistics. Real life clashes with talent. It wasn't only him who was frustrated. The media, pundits, and fans who were hoping for another increase shared it. Rather, the area where shouts had formerly erupted was now silent. The quiet might often seem louder than the noise to Tiger's son. Furthermore, the plot wasn't about victory this time. The topic was inconsistency, a misstep that makes a statement louder than words can. Nevertheless, every setback lays the foundation for future development. Charlie saw this as a lesson that would be woven throughout his career rather than the conclusion of a trip. A teacher is more honest after a missed cut than after a triumphal speech. Failure presented as a starting point. Greatness is seldom told in a clear narrative. There are troughs in every young golfer's life, and this one was particularly steep, but they have a purpose. They get gamers ready for future peaks. Each chapter is not a prize. Anyone who attempts to learn golf is humbled. Even the best victors have left competitions doubting their abilities. Reminding Charlie that genius one week might disappear the next, Charlie joined that lineage. Golf degrades more quickly than it elevates. Here's the secret, however. Cuts that are missed are not wasted. Every setback strengthens the fortitude required to weather the storm of expectations. Not lost opportunities, but missed cuts. And one measure is all that counts when everything is said and done. Not the cut or the round, but the fortitude to get back up after it. Only resilience is a significant score. Every obstacle leads to a turning point. Charlie Woods might have used missing the cut as an anchor, but instead it became fuel. He underwent physical, mental, and emotional transformations away from the limelight that altered not just his swing, but also his whole demeanor. The youngster who had before seemed overwhelmed started to appear prepared. A heavier game with a lighter frame. Initially, observers noted during practice rounds, his shoulders were straightened with purpose, his stride was crisper, and his frame seemed slimmer. Performance was more important than looks when it came to weight loss. Charlie had an athletic demeanor, intent on competing rather than just taking part. Discipline masquerading as fate. His own mirror revealed a different tale. Once seeming brittle under duress, the youth now displayed tenacity engraved into his stance. It was evident in the way he held the club, the poise before, his backswing, and the intensity of his concentration. A different golfer may be seen in the mirror. His game was directly impacted by the physical change. His drives became further because he had more endurance and a stronger core. His accuracy in his approach shots and his perseverance across the 18 holes were unwavering. It went beyond just losing weight. It has to do with starting a fire. More fire with less weight. This wasn't a child attempting to make an impression. It was a competitor's advancement. Charlie went from bursts of genius to extended periods of concentration, from youthful promise to honed edge, and from raw promise to sharpened edge. The most significant distinction is mental toughness. He channeled pressure into execution by leaning into his nerves rather than allowing them to control his swing. A player who was learning to flourish under scrutiny had taken the place of the nervous teenager. Flashes are replaced with focus. Because mechanics aren't the focus of meaningful change. It has to do with attitude. Charlie did more than just alter his swing. He modified his strategy for the game, putting all of my effort into the grind that golf requires. The true swing shift is commitment. The outcome was evident. He no longer had the appearance of Tiger's kid attempting to keep up. He resembled golfer Charlie Woods, forging his own route. Talent is not as loud as transformation. For Charlie Woods, the topic of discussion extends beyond golf. It has to do with inheritance. In addition to the swing lessons he learned from his father, he also had to deal with the celebrity, fortune, and expectations that came with being associated with one of the most recognized names in sports. Millions have already been raised for a trust fund. However, having money doesn't make the pressure of competitiveness go away. Although pressure cannot be banked, fortune is waiting. Because privilege really affects both parties. Charlie does have access to resources that most juniors can only imagine. World-class facilities, top-notch teaching, and Tiger's own knowledge. However, every benefit is scrutinized twice. His last name is seen by many as a cage, rather than only a door opener. Prison and privilege share a last name. Although it cannot create a champion, money can guarantee stability. No inheritance can replace the early mornings, unrelenting effort, and mental toughness required for the game.